And I'm with Shiloni Transformation Ministries, and I have seen lives change, and people can change. Most of the men that we have worked with in the past were victims of abuse or sexual predation when they were children. Well, they have to have healing in their life, and people can't change on their own. They have to have somebody to help, and we're there to help these men walk out of the life they've been in, and it's a very difficult thing, but we have seen lives change.
Just a very quick question. Having undertaken the efforts that you've undertaken in ministering and helping with treatment, in your experience, but then having heard Representative Wallace's explanation of the situation they're dealing with in his community that, by his account, sounds pretty dire. How do you address that type of situation, given I think the successes you've had, but the story that you just heard?
Part of what we're trying to do is give them some instruction, to bring them in and give them some guidelines, to have different people come in and counsel with them, to let them find out who God says they are, and to have a relationship with the Lord, because we can't change on our own. I happened to be a victim of child molestation when I was a child. It wasn't some stranger, it was some family member that we trusted. Okay? Being a stranger down the street doesn't mean that's the person that's going to bother somebody. It can be somebody in the family, in the house, brother, sister, whatever. Most of the people that have been sexually molested have been sexually molested by people under 18.
Several years ago, back in 1999, I was called upon by the Department of Corrections, by the chaplaincy, to go in and start working as counselor and advisor and helping individuals get some things straight in their life. I first started out dealing with same-sex attraction because that was something that I dealt with simply because I was molested when I was a child. God performed a miracle in my life, and it was not an easy path to go. But in doing a transitional house, I realized that there needed to be some kind of guidelines that would be properly set in place. I met with the city and the county officials at that time for 6 months. Also got on the internet and studied all of the material that was available with the National Institute of Corrections dealing with these issues. I contacted some of the other places that were dealing with it, and I have to admit, the deal that y'all are having to deal with gives you warrant to want to oppose it. We actually met with the mental health department. Kathy Sievert came and gave us a high recognition. We met with Joe Thomas, who was the governor's special projects manager at that time. We've been working with this program for about 8 years. And then Cynthia Dillard with Parole Board has been very cooperative with us, giving us tremendous advice on adjustments and changes that we needed to make. And I promise you, if we will set some guidelines, then we won't have any Bible-feeding objective of individuals that are trying to do their thing.
Some questions, Representative Beckman?
A couple things trouble me. We have individuals, even in Talbot County, that don't have the ministry, that have the individual that maybe are looking for a place to stay and that are not getting treatment. They just need a place to stay. And that's what concerns a lot of people. The second issue that I have is the qualifications of the individuals at this point in time, as far as that are running these halfway homes. I understand your intentions, and everybody is honorable, but the bottom line is you're right. There are no guidelines out there, but and you're probably right. And my response would be to that is until we get that, we still have a duty to protect society.
Here's one thing that I have attempted to do, and at times it feels like I'm not succeeding. I've attempted to try to make adjustments and changes in the advice and guidelines of not only officials. I had good relationship as far as the parole board, as far as the local officers dealing with these issues, and they've been very helpful. And according to that, I have made changes, my personal self. I have to agree with, unless we have some kind of guidelines, it's going to create a problem. It will continue to be a problem.
Within this facility, in Chilton County, how many repeat offenders have popped up or continue to pop up or have there been incidences of occurrences relative to this facility?
Ma'am, the numbers that I've seen as far as crimes of sexual in nature between August 2010 and January 1st, 2013, I'm not aware of any sexual related crimes. There have been many arrests and many other crimes, but as far as sexually related crimes, I'm not aware of any.
And that's what I wanted to know, because we're specifically dealing with sexually related crimes. Criminals are everywhere, so I mean, I would just like to have gotten those numbers since we're addressing this.
So in other words, there was none.
As far as personally, I've only had 2 of the 150 that actually reoffended. And I have question as to the legitimacy of one of them. There have been a lot that have been reincarcerated simply because either it's because of drugs, frustration. I personally have had to move 4 times in an attempt to stay within the guidelines of Jefferson County. It's made it very difficult. It's cost us a tremendous amount of money. But you will have a percentage of individuals that have had no raising. And there are 3 component factors that actually cause an individual to be a propensity to this problem. 1, no father figure. 2, a feeling of rejection and abandonment. And 3, molestation in childhood. One thing I discovered while I was working with the Department of Corrections, I found that the greatest portion of individuals that are incarcerated, regardless of whether it's murder, theft, alcohol, or whatever, have had all 3 of those problems to contend with in their childhood. Now, I don't know. I'm seeing that we're failing to do what we should do for the victim. There's got to be healing. Otherwise, there is a chance that they might eventually fall into that.
We have one more question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this may be for the gentleman from the county, but how about if they're not licensed in any way, are there not some zoning or county ordinances or some way? I mean, if you've got 26 people, even if they're all related living in one house, it seems like there might be some county ordinances or some zoning ordinances that might prevent that type of thing in the moment.
Well,
so
Mike,
any remedies of that nature?
If I can come back up for a second.
Here's your question.
I guess I'm addressing it to the gentleman from the county, the officer with the county, the district attorney, I'm sorry.
As far as any particular county or zoning ordinances, no, sir, I'm not aware. The only one I would be aware of is if there's some type of issue brought up as far as like a septic system or something like that. So with maybe the Department of Health would be the only one I'm aware of that would be applicable to this situation. That would be the only one I'm aware of.
So there's no, just follow up, Mr. Chairman, so there's no requirements in Chilton County that if you're running a business that houses 26 people, that you got to have some type of county license to do that?
I think it would depend on what you're classifying this place as. Right now, it's holding itself out to be a church, not necessarily a business. The individuals at this property have essentially built this man a facility, if you want to call it a church, if you want to call it a building, whatever you would like to call it. You know, the name of the place is Triumph Ministries, but at this time I'm not aware of any regulations where it's classified as a business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative England?
I think this is more directed. She does have a couple of legal questions. Do individuals charged with public lewdness or public indecency, are they required to register now? Are they supposed to register?
If they are charged with those crimes, it is a registration offense, so they would be registered. However, they're not subject to the notification requirements. So if they moved in your neighborhood, you would not get a notification. Their name would not be on the watchdog sites, that type of thing.
But however, wouldn't it be on the sheriff's register?
Well, now the register is maintained by ABI, Alabama Bureau of Investigation. The Sheriff's Department does maintain and update that register, but it's
My
maintained by
question is, wouldn't it be on the
ABI.
register?
If you're a registered sex offender, yes.
All right, so what if two kids charged with public lewdness for peeing in public live in a dorm? Do they both violate this new 500 feet restriction?
Your question is, if they're under 21 at the time, youthful offender could be in play, that would apply. If they're adults,
about the
that's
registry. If they're on the registry, this bill applies to people on the registry.
I believe the bill has some amendments to where it's only adult sex offenders, excluding juveniles and people with
All right,
wild.
so like 22, living in an apartment complex.
If they have registered as, this is my particular address, it's their official registered address, then I would think that it could potentially apply.
So, you know, on game, first, most people don't know that if somebody's charged with public lewdness for urinating in public, that they're at that point considered to be a sex offender because they have to register.
I may be mistaken, but I believe that indecent exposure is a registration offense, but I'm not certain. Probably lewdness is under the new. Under the new SORNA, then okay.
It is. So that means that two college kids, 22 years old, living in an apartment complex, who are both being convicted and are registered sex offenders now for public lewdness, couldn't live in the same apartment complex. I mean, you can imagine that a city that has a college in it would have some problems dealing with an issue like that. That two sex offenders couldn't live within 500 feet of each other. That might be a problem. I mean, I get what the object of this legislation is. But at the same time, this might be one of those issues where you're creating a bill that is designated to go after one specific sort of conduct, but actually cast a wide net to have enough unintended consequences to catch individuals that you never intended to catch. And then additionally, you may actually increase the amount of costs that law enforcement will have to go through, because now, as has been pointed out, your sex offenders are going to be scattered all over the place. Because you've already got the 2,000 feet requirement, now you got the 500 feet requirement. You can be in a neighborhood, house is 500 feet away, you mean they wouldn't have to be to live in a neighborhood. And they're unrelated, since they're unrelated, I mean, they move to a house where their family might be, and the only place they could go, and then they find out that another sex offender lives in the same neighborhood, who moved in prior to them. This person has absolutely nowhere to go. So, I mean, I understand the issue. You know, it's one of those things that you may not be able to create a law narrowly tailored enough to stop the problem in one county without negatively impacting all Alabama counties. So, I mean, I understand the idea, but I don't necessarily support the execution.
All right.